What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. I'm your host, Jerry Scarlato, and today's conversation is with Jeremy Fouts. Jeremy is the host of the Hard Truth podcast, as well as the founder of CorVive supplements. In this episode, we talk about the peaks and valleys that Jeremy has been through to get to where he is today. Many peaks, many valleys, and also once he got to the ultimate valley, he decided to then take another leap and start a business because what you hear throughout this conversation is that there's more to life than just the money, than just the labels, than just the things that you have in your life. Yes, for sure, all of those things can bring up and increase your level of enjoyment of life. Having more money can increase your level of enjoyment for sure. Having nicer things, especially if you like them, not if you're trying to show off, but if you like them, can and certainly can increase your enjoyment of life. But it does not bring happiness or fulfillment in life. And the pinnacle of Jeremy's life, if you will, he decided to make a change, make a leap, and take a completely different direction after retiring at like the age of 45 because he had already made all the money he needed to make in his lifetime. Having a ranch out in Colorado, he decided to set that all aside and go start a business because he wanted to find another level of fulfillment, which he knew was out there. So, a lot to learn in this conversation with Jeremy. But before we get to that, I'll encourage you to hit the pause real quick and go give us a quick review, or if you're on YouTube, subscribe so that we can reach more people. The more subscribers, reviews we have, the more people we reach. And I greatly appreciate you guys taking just 10 seconds to subscribe or leave us a review so that we can get the message out and they can also learn the importance of finding success and fulfillment together and not assuming that once you reach success, that all of a sudden life is grand and you're ready to go. So, with that said, get your pen and paper out and enjoy this conversation with Jeremy Fouts. Jeremy, great to have you on the show, my friend. I think we're going to have a good conversation. As I was doing research for this episode, I found your story, which is super intriguing. What I find interesting is that many successful people have at least two, but if not three, what you call peaks and valleys, which I love that concept. And you mentioned that pretty regularly throughout your message. So I'd like to talk about a couple of your peaks and valleys. And I think it makes sense to start with the beginning because our childhood can dictate our outcome in life, our environment from our childhood and what we learn in our childhood. And the question is, do you let it dictate your outcome in life? Or do you at least figure it out at some point that it is having an impact on you and you figure out how to change it?
Yeah.
It sounds like you made an early decision to not let it dictate your outcome.
Yeah.
So give it a little backstory on what your childhood was like, and then I want to dig into some questions.
Yeah, absolutely, Jerry. I mean, I read a book back when I was in my 30s, said you either accept the culture that you come into or you create your own new culture. And that was something that I wanted to do as a young boy. I grew up in a strong Christian home in Oklahoma, a little bitty town of 2,000 people. My mom and dad, they was farmers, had a few cows as well. And one of the two of the biggest values that they taught me is how to work extremely hard and then treat others like you want to be treated. I think that's something that, has definitely made an impact to me in my life. And, my parents, though, I watched them grow up, or I grew up watching them struggle with finances. And that was one thing that I wanted to always do is get myself in a situation when I had a family to not always be a burden by the finances, not always worrying about debt, different things like that. And, as you mentioned, peaks and valleys, one of my things that was definitely a valley in my life, I thought athletics was what was going to get me out of that 2,000 people town and get me into a situation that I would be able to provide well for my family later on. And due to some injuries that won't bore you with the details, that was not the case. But I took what I learned, went to college, got a degree, started farming myself after college, and just got introduced though while I was farming to leadership and personal development. And that right there is really, Jerry, what changed my whole perspective in life and my whole direction is understanding that I am control of my destination. I'm not going to let a victim mindset because things didn't work out my way, dictate, my future. So that was something that really made a difference to me in my life.
So, how were you introduced to that mindset? Because that's something that not a lot of 20 somethings or late teens get introduced to. That's not something that many of them even are attracted to per se because they just haven't been through enough struggle. Luckily, maybe that's not the right way to put it. You knew what struggle looked like and you knew what physical struggle was definitely like. So maybe it's just because when you saw it and you saw a different mentality, you were immediately attracted to it. But where did you find that
Yeah.
mentality?
Yeah, I had an old football coach that was with a nutrition company, and it was direct sales. And I know direct sales get a lot of bad rap a lot of times, but the great thing about direct sales is it's 100% commission based, and it's the same products and the same commission structure for every person involved. So it really makes you do a good reflection on you. If you're in the same company and you're having success, but I'm not, what is the reasoning behind that? And so as a 22, 23-year old young boy, it helped me recognize that if I want to get better and increase my commissions, then it's the value that I bring to the marketplace is what's going to dictate that. The way I speak, the way I treat people, am I trying to make a sale just to help my bank account, or am I trying to make a sale to solve the problem in someone's life? And it really also helped me realize that, it's my mindset, what I put in my mind, how I develop my mind, how I create becoming the person that I want to become is what's going to help determine that success that I have. I think whether it be in sales or anything, Jerry, you and I, we see this, and I'm, very impressed with your podcast. I've been listening to your episodes, and you do such a phenomenal job of really truly teaching servant leadership because really and truly, I mean, that's what it is. It's about, can we have the ability and the know-how to truly have a servant leadership style? Because if you really put others first and focus on others, then you're going to have success in life.
There's a lot of truth to that. That really resonates with me, and clearly there's a reason why that does. But um, I think another thing that a lot of people don't understand about MLM companies is that they also, many of them, not all of them, I don't think, but many of them develop their people.
Yeah,
They actually hold a whole lot of seminars and things for their people because they understand that's the product is their people.
right.
If their people aren't the best that they can be, then the product is not going to sell and the company's not going to grow. So a lot of those companies actually are great personal development avenues in and of themselves.
Oh, absolutely. And I've had the chance to mentor a lot of people that a lot of times the reason it gets bad rap is because a lot of people think that every person in that company is going to be a millionaire in that company. And a lot of times, that company was just a placeholder for that person to develop to then go do something great in a traditional company, or to be a better coach at something, or to be the best mom or the best dad. But I absolutely, agree with you. It's that personal development, the time that they invest in those people, which is so valuable during that experience, and that's how I was able to in my 30s, make a lot of millions of dollars. I actually led over 230,000 people in an organization, and I made millions, but something that I'm more proud of is the impact that I made in people. I helped mentor over 8 couples that made over 1 million a year, and that's why even now with the company I own, CorVive, we're not a direct sales or MLM company. We're direct to consumer, but we continuously try to provide that community for people can not only learn about education of nutrition and education of pushing the body physically and becoming the best we can be. And I'm big on personal fitness like you, and I teach people over and over that personal fitness, number one, if you don't make that a priority next to my faith, and you don't do that, you're not only not going to have a good quality of life, you're going to be a burden on your own family. So bringing that education of leadership, physical fitness, nutrition, bringing all that together, I call it the four pieces. I mean, if you don't have those four pieces together, you're not going to become the leader and the person that you was meant to be.
Well, and servant leadership in and of itself starts with you. It starts with
Absolutely.
you leading you leading the way, not being the front person, but being the best you by
Yes.
taking care of yourself, by
Yes.
building yourself physically, by building yourself mentally, by building yourself spiritually. That's what servant leadership
Right.
is all about. And if it doesn't start with you, you cannot be selfless before you are selfish. And a lot of people get that completely backwards because they don't understand the how you cannot effectively how people do not see you the way that you want them to see you, no matter what you're saying, if you're not doing it yourself. You can
Exactly.
say all you want to say, but your actions speak much louder than your words. And that's why when you have your actions in line, damn, if people don't follow you, it's only because they're just not down with that at that
Right.
point. That's
Right.
fine. That's
Yeah.
even better because at that point you start to weed the people out that don't want that culture and don't want that fit and don't want to go down the route that you're building for everybody.
Absolutely. It's about being that example. I work with a lot of young athletes, and parents will call me and they'll say, "Hey, what do we got to do here to help this young athlete? I don't understand. He don't eat correctly. She don't eat correctly. They don't work out. They don't do these things." And I'll look at them, Jerry, and I've got to be very honest with them and very truthful with them and say, look at yourself in the mirror without your shirt on. I mean, you're sitting on the couch watching Netflix, eating Doritos, and you're not working out, and you're wondering why your son or your daughter. You have to be that example. And as far as leadership, a lot of times in society, we want to choose status over service. I'm the CEO of the company. I'm the dad. I'm the boss. I'm this. It's not about your status. It's about the service that you can provide to others.
Well, and I think another thing that's worth pointing out is that service doesn't mean sacrifice,
Mhm.
meaning it's not about doing something just because it's morally right to do. It's not about doing something because everyone else thinks that you should be doing it. And it's something that you find somewhat degrading, if you
Right.
will. Service is about finding the thing that drives you and then giving your life and your heart to that and
Yes.
through other people.
Right.
And that idea, I think, is why so many people don't find fulfillment in their life is because they stop at fulfilling their own life.
Yeah.
How do I fulfill myself? Or how not even fulfill? How do I make my life what the rest of society thinks it should be? And then they stop there and they don't see how to take the next step and transcend themselves and move on to serving others. And that angst that a lot of people I think feel in their life is that gap.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, it's pretty simple. Find a way to serve the many, and for service to many leads to greatness. I mean, that's just the way the good book describes it. And I think it's so easy for society, for people to, like you said, they're looking for fulfillment, but they don't know where to look. Where if you and I, we dial in our personal fitness, we have good faith, we have all the different things that mean a lot to us, and we have our goals written down, then we put all of our focus into helping others, and helping them reach their goals and making an impact on people's lives. I've had the fortunate ability to not have to worry about finances for a lot of years, but the years that I've been idle, I actually retired once and had a ranch in Colorado, and totally don't regret that. That was some great times with my boys, teaching them about responsibility and hard work and things like that. But when I launched this company, CorVive, 6 years ago, I was not going to be fulfilled unless every day my opportunity of work had a difference in making an impact in someone's life.
That's very profound, and I think that a lot of people could learn just to think differently, think outside of yourself for a second and think how
Mhm.
you could take your skills and abilities and the thing that you care about so much, whatever that general idea is, and how you could then serve others through that avenue, because I think that that would help close that gap for a lot of people. But I want to go back to speaking of financial peaks and valleys, you had a couple other ones after you kind of came out, went into farming. Your first one was in farming, and then you kind of jumped in and got your feet going again, and then you had another crash after that.
Yeah.
So tell me about those two instances also, so that we
Yeah.
can kind of figure out where your mentality was throughout all that.
Yeah. Again, I had a love for agriculture. Sports was my first choice, and that didn't work out. So I got a first time farmer's loan and purchased some land in Mulder, Oklahoma. And I thought, I'm gonna be smarter than my dad. My dad mainly did row crop, corn, soybeans, wheat, that type of thing. So I started growing a lot of vegetables for Gerber Baby Food, Allen Canning Company. And vegetables had a lot bigger chance for reward. It just had a lot bigger risk. And so, like, I'm running irrigation 24 hours a day. I'm doing all these different things. And my first disaster was a squash crop. I grew about 3 million pounds of squash a year. And in Oklahoma, it don't really rain at all during June and July. And that's why you have to rely on irrigation. Usually it's 105 degrees. Well, we had a 3-inch rain in a matter of like minutes. I mean, like 22 minutes, 3-inch rain. And I had a soil-borne disease in that field where that squash plant was growing that I had no awareness of. And I was about to start harvesting 2 days later, Jerry. And I'll never forget pulling out of the driveway, I saw a plant that was just looked like you took a blowtorch and torched it. And I sent it over to the Oklahoma State University, overnighted it. They sent me back the results the next day and said the whole field will be gone in 2 days. And literally the whole field was gone in 2 days before I harvested anything. And in vegetables, you have over 800 to $1,000 an acre a lot of times into that plant. And I'll never forget just feeling devastated, But then at the same time, I had 800 acres of the prettiest crop of green beans. And I'm thinking, well, at least I still have this crop. Well, it didn't stop raining. It kept raining, kept raining, kept raining. And the crop was so abundant, but the harvesters that I had the contract with couldn't get there to harvest it. And I had to literally disc up 800 acres of green beans. And I'll never forget sitting there as at that time a 23-year-old gentleman that I just had tears going down my face. Like you feel like that life's not fair, right? And I'm like, this is not the way it should be. I put in the work. If you don't put in the work and failure happens, you got to point at yourself and say, hey, I didn't do the work. Well, I did the work. I invested the money. I did everything. And so that's when I was introduced to that direct sales company that I needed to make some extra income. I'm like, I had a lot of people say you just need to file bankruptcy, and that's just not in me. I've never did that. That was never an option. And so when I started with that company, after I taught myself all of those things, personal development, I worked myself up to making 300,000 a year with that company and was able to pay off all that farm debt, different things while I was still farming. And I thought, well, man, this is the future. And then the founder of that company passed away, left the company to be ran by a friend of mine. And we was still tracking in the right direction. And he was my old football coach. And then they dismissed him. And because it was kind of like a church fight, won't get into the whole story. And that's when I was totally devastated because I knew as far as my character, I needed to step back from that company. And I had this thing in my head saying, walk away from it and I'll give it back to you tenfold. This is the right thing to do. And I went from walking away from that company to starting a construction company. And Jerry, we never even printed business cards or anything. For about 5 years, my wife and I, we had no debt, no partners. We grew a construction company that was just remarkable and making real good income. And I mean, everything that was another peak in my life. I'm like, man, this is going great. Nothing's going to shut this down. And in 2005, 2006, when the economy started crashing, I mean, I had problems collecting money from big clients. We was building big commercial projects, big residential, kitchen remodels, all these different things. And here I found myself in my life again with a 2-year-old son and another son on the way, no medical insurance, maxed out my credit cards, did everything I could do to make sure my labors was paid for Christmas when I knew that I couldn't even enjoy a Christmas or my wife's birthday either. And I'll never forget what that low point in my life was like of thinking, man, I don't know what else I can do. Again, if you don't put in the work, it's on you. But I mean, I worked extremely hard building that construction company. And I'm like, man, this is not fair. And that's why I teach so much of not having a victim mindset. Yes, it wasn't necessarily fair, but you know what? I chose to start that construction company. I chose to do those things. And that's why we have to take ownership of those valleys. We can't just sit there and say, poor, pitiful me. But shortly after that, I was introduced to another direct sales company. And I just got through going through New Year's Eve, telling my wife how great the construction business is going to be the next year, all those different things. My credit card gets declined for dinner. But then that's when I said, you know what? I'm going to start this new adventure on the side while I'm running a construction company. And I said, look at me in the eyes and talking to my wife, Candace. I said, give me 4 years and my family will never have to worry about income again. And I was able to make, millions and millions of dollars, with that nutrition company and was able to sell my position and retire on the ranch. But it was something that too that a lot of people don't realize about failures and different things. You look at it as the experience. See, when I was in my 20s with that nutrition company first, and then when I was in that construction company, I was learning all this valuable information, how to treat people, how to prepare my mind, how to be the best leader I can be. And then that's what helped me be able to set my family up financially. And so the biggest thing about peaks and valleys, I tell everyone, is don't just focus on poor, pitiful me. Focus on the experiences, the knowledge that you learned in that experience. Pull your pants back up, pull your boots back up, and say, there's another opportunity coming around the corner, and I'm going to go have major success at this.
Yeah, that is the thing that most people just don't grasp onto because man, they just look at the job title or they look at
Right.
the money that they were earning or they look at how big the business was or whatever, thing that you have to track instead of recognizing the skills and abilities that cannot be taken away from you because of everything that you've learned along the way. And that is where your market value goes. Like
Right.
that's your market value is your skills and abilities. It's not because you had the title of, whatever manager or executive. It's not because you had a business that made $1 million a year. It's not because any other thing. It's because you developed those skills and abilities. And now you can take all of those skills, all those abilities, all that wisdom, your mindset, all of the things that you built along the way that are now in you, a part of you. And now you can take that and turn that into something else, whatever that is. And that's basically like what you were doing along that path is, you lose all your crop, you learn, you build this mental resilience throughout that. You go to this first MLM, they help you build this mentality that you can do better and you can build yourself into something new and you can build yourself into something great. And then you take a risk and you transition to construction and you're like, hey, this is great. We're doing wonderful. And then it crashes out. But then you had that mental resilience that you had built up through the first MLM. And for whatever reason, another MLN came along and you found that. And because partly maybe your comfort with the first one and also the mental resilience that you had built with all of that, you had the confidence that you could go and take the skills and abilities that you had built and be successful with it. Hence the conversation you had with your wife. Hey, in 4 years, I know this is what I can do. And you knew that because of everything you'd done before that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything is preparing you for the next step, and then when a lot of times again we want to cry about our situation, make excuses about our situation. I told my wife when I looked at her and told her, I said, I'm going to take this opportunity and run with it. I could see the hesitation on her mind. I could see the questions, going through her mind. But I said, Candace, I already have like a PhD in leadership and nutrition. And if I do not use that, I'm actually throwing that away. And because once you build that resilience, what you're talking about, Jerry, no one could ever take that from me. You can take my car, you can take my clothes, you can take my house, you can take anything that you want. But and that's why I'm so big on investing in you. Building that physical body, building that faith, building that mental mindset to be the best you can be. I actually have the ability to work with a lot of athletes, and I work with a lot of baseball players, and we talk about hitting. And I'm like, would you agree that hitting is about 95% mental? And they're like, yes, absolutely. And I'm like, but you're spending all of your time in the gym and hitting in the batting cages, but how much time are you spending on the mental mindset part? Well, zero. Watching TikTok is not going to build the mental mindset. So that mental mindset, that's why I'm such a big believer of becoming the best leader you can be mentally and physically, because no one can ever strip that from you. Because the way adversity works, we can call it peaks and valleys, we can call it adversity, but I tell everyone adversity is either here or it just left or it's on the way. And what's going to determine how you handle that adversity is going to be how equipped you are mentally, physically, spiritually, and have all those pieces together.
One of my favorite sayings is, "You don't rise to the level of your expectations; you fall to the level of your training."
Absolutely.
And that's what this is about.
Yes.
That's exactly what this is about. What you're saying is, in those moments when it's hard, we're all our own superhero in our heads, right? We like to
Right.
visualize and think that if we go through some hard struggle and we go through something, we'd be able to work through it and we'd be mentally ready and prepared to work through it. I'll tell you my own example of how that was completely wrong because last year I already told you before we started, I closed my business last year. um, I had it for 10 years. I also actually went through a divorce at the same time last year, and I was married for 10 years. So it's a long time to be in a business, long time to be married, and then to suddenly have those things cut off and transition out of them. Well, during that 6-month period of time where I was going through both of those situations, I had done a lot of personal development up until that point, and I had had struggles. We went through COVID. We had to shut the
Right.
business down. We had to go through all that. That was mentally challenging. It was actually much easier than going through the rest of it. But there were other things that I got, ups and downs and peaks, valleys. There's all that. But I was not prepared for those 2 together. When those 2 stacked on top of each other for that 6 months, my mind was not ready for it. I thought for sure at the beginning of it, I'm like, "Okay, I think I'm gonna be able to get through this. Everything's gonna be okay." And it just started compounding and accumulating, and I felt like I didn't have any control and all these things and so on. My mind wasn't ready for it. I thought I was ready for that level of ability, but I just wasn't there. And now I know that when that new challenge arises, I have a level of resilience built in, and I know that that's there. But I also believe that I am not as arrogant to go into it thinking that I have it all under control at the same
Right.
time. I know that there's still things I'm going to have to learn and be open to adapting to along the way. And that was the biggest thing that I really learned throughout all that is I need to not pretend like I know what the hell's going on with this. I need to be open to everything I'm going to have to adapt to along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I call it give yourself grace. I mean, we've all got to, equip ourselves the best we can, but we also got to give ourselves grace and know that, deep down there's some other part of our life that we really need to work on. And that could be, your faith, your physical fitness, your relationships, all those different things. But none of us are perfect, right? And I was working with a young guy, he's 21, and he putting a lot of pressure on himself trying to start his own business and all these different things. And he's like, how come I can't know what you already know? And how come I don't? I'm like, I'm 48. It's not designed that way where you have to know everything at once. You're not going to. I could tell you all these different things, but part of life is you have to go through those experiences. I mean, if I would have told you before you shut the business down, before you went through the divorce, all how hard it would be if this happens, all you still wouldn't have got it. You had to go through that experience. You had to let that experience make you tougher, to make you more hungry in order to be better. That way, next time something comes into your life, you're like, you know what? I've dealt with something a lot tougher than this. I mean, that's one of the things I started doing 2 years ago. I've got a cold plunge in my garage, and a guy asked me the other day, he's like, "Why do you like getting in 39 degrees at 5 o'clock in the morning?" And I'm like, "Because it's one of the toughest things that I do on a daily basis." And he's like, "Then why do you do it?" And I'm like, "Because anything else that comes to me during the day, I'm like, no big deal. I was getting naked in a cold plunge 39 degrees 4 hours ago. This is no big deal with the product shipping issue or whatever I'm dealing with." So that's the way life is designed. And that's why I love doing the challenging things and going through those challenging moments to make us better.
There's no doubt about that. I think we could all do much better in building a little challenge into our life, considering the comfort that we're constantly seeking, always, all the time, the comfort and the certainty, and so on and so forth, which is a whole nother story in and of itself. I am curious, though. Speaking of comfort, you had such a good life, and it's not that you threw it away, but you were talking about being retired there for a little bit after you had gone through your second kind of rise in the MLM world, and you had a good life and everything, but you decided to do again. I don't know exactly what the transition looked like. You can get a little backstory, but you decided to then go start uh, your own company, which a lot of people would be like, you're going to basically build a headache, like you're going to
Yeah.
build this this thing that know is going to give you a bunch of headaches. What is wrong with you? I as an entrepreneur completely understand,
Yeah.
but tell me what gave you that drive to go do that.
Well, Jerry, it's pretty difficult to try to explain what my feelings were in making that decision. I'd always worked hard and I wanted to get myself in a situation where I could just enjoy my boys in them growing up. And I did that. I bought that ranch in Hotchkiss, Colorado. One of the most beautiful places in the country, most sunshine in the world. Had a trout river running through the property. I could literally see out my living room window 6 different mountain ranges that had snow on them all year round. 2,000 acres, millions in the bank, all these different things. And when we purchased that property, we put it in a land trust that it can never be developed or anything. That was something that was important to me. And we had a plan, a 4-year plan, what's best for the elk, what's best for the deer, planting these things, water tanks, fences for the cattle, doing cell grazing, all these things to make the land more productive. We worked with the government to have little butterfly projects. We had migratory butterflies that come through. I mean, we had a great plan, and I thought that that would just fulfill me. And I built the fences, I did the projects, all those different things, and I couldn't find no peace, Jerry. It was so weird to have the money in the bank, to have a healthy life or healthy wife, healthy kids, to be able to spend every day with them. And I'll never forget, it was about 3 days straight that I didn't sleep more than about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And we built actually a 12,000 square foot lodge. I mean, we had anything and everything you could think of. And I one morning about 4:30, I couldn't sleep. I was in the living room, and my wife come around the corner, and sorry, man. She looked at me and she said, you're gonna start a company, aren't you?" And I said, "No, we are gonna start a company." And sorry, man, I don't ever get emotional. I don't know why that is, but it to me it felt selfish, Jerry, of knowing what I know about life and given the opportunity I had to be able to live there to do those things without starting something that I was passionate about and not going and teaching others those steps in that process. To me, I was feeling empty inside because I knew the power of nutrition. I knew the power of community. I knew the power of leadership. And I felt like for me to sit there and just reap the rewards without giving back and making more of an impact on other people's lives, I would be a very selfish individual. And yes, I made a lot of sacrifices. We actually put our own money into starting the company. We actually put our own effort into starting the company. But when you get those letters of people that, didn't know where they was going to turn in life and thinking about suicide, and now after being a part of the company, how it's impacted them, husbands and wives, how they've come closer together, all these different things. I mean, that's truly what pushes me to be the best I can be every day. I've told my boys from the word go since as young, I'm like, the biggest thing I can do for you is give you a good name, the Fouts name. And then next is at my funeral of not worrying about how much money I'm going to leave you, but the people coming up to you at my funeral and telling you that your dad changed my life. Your dad made an impact in my life. And I think we get away from that. We get into a point in life where it's all about the vehicles that we drive. It's all about the homes we have. The real true thing here is what kind of humility and service and impact can we make on others?
Well, and that goes back to the servant leadership we were talking about at the beginning of this. And I think your journey kind of conveys that through and through. You said during your the downfall of the construction company as it started to trend downward, you made sure that your guys were all paid, your people were all
Yeah.
paid, and you knew that you weren't going to be able to have a Christmas. And that's something that I could resonate with. I actually got emotional for a second while you were saying that. Luckily I wasn't talking during that moment, otherwise I would have had the same sort of feeling
Yeah.
that you just had. But for COVID, for instance, whenever we shut down during COVID, we just had a fitness studio, and it was a relatively small town, only 12,000 people, mostly a rural town. If you went about a mile south, there was farms and so on too, but there were some urban areas in it as well. But small town, so it's not like the fitness studio made us tons of money. But when we shut it down, I told the girls, I say girls because all of our team was girls. I told them, look, the one thing that I know for sure is you guys are going to get paid your normal wage throughout all of this, no matter
Oh,
how long that needs to be, no matter what that looks like. You are going to get paid the same throughout all of this. I just want to make sure you do not worry about anything.
yeah.
And of course, during that, I didn't get paid
Right.
during any
Right.
of it. So, as an entrepreneur, that's one thing that if servant leadership is something that is part of you, that's something that you do. It just kind of makes sense to you. It doesn't you make sure your people are okay. You make sure that everyone around you is safe. And I feel like one of the things that drove you to start the business was that making sure you wanted to be in a place where you could basically expand all of your skills, show all of your skills, and build something that could then help a ton of people along the way. You were able to bring servant leadership into all of it. You were able to bring personal development into it because you can develop all of your team. And at the same time, you can put information out that helps develop others. So
Right.
you basically have something, you have a vehicle that allows you to do all of these things that bring you fulfillment and purpose.
Absolutely. And it goes back to too, if you and I start a business and maybe we're flipping houses and we make $10,000 on flipping a house, whatever that situation may be, that's great, but we got to go do it again in order for us to make another 10,000. What I've learned about personal development, leadership, education, all those different things, if I help transform your life and literally really changing your life and understanding to take responsibility of your own choices, teaching you leadership, teaching you education on nutrition, teaching you personal fitness, then no doubt you're not going to keep that a secret. You're going to go out and share that with others. And then you're going to change their life. And then they're going to go change other people's lives. And that's really something that I'm so attracted to in what I do for a living is the ability of my efforts to have a trickle effect on and on and on. So when my day is called, my numbers, I'm done. You know what? Hopefully my efforts and my impact will continue to have that trickle effect into thousands and thousands of more people's lives.
That's good, brother. I just got the chills a little bit, I gotta say. Um, Great conversation, Jeremy. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate all your wisdom. Having people like you on this earth, I think, is what helps bring, I'll say, hope to the the idea that we can move in a stronger direction again. I think there's plenty of people out there that want someone like you to be able to help them, and so the fact that you're jumping out there and do this. I know you just started the podcast,
Yeah.
your own podcast, Hard Truth, I believe is the
Yes,
name of it.
the hard
Yeah,
truth started about 8 weeks ago, Jerry. It's doing extremely well, and
yep.
I'm going to be sending you an invite to be on as well
I
because
appreciate that.
again, you do a phenomenal job, and we totally align with each other's beliefs.
I appreciate that so much, brother. Jeremy, I appreciate you. Thanks again for all of your wisdom. Let everybody know where they can find you.
The best way is at Jeremy Fouts Leadership on Instagram. You can send me a direct message. I'll get right back to you. I'm not as good on email, so that's probably the best way is at Jeremy Fouts Leadership on Instagram. And I'll definitely, help anybody I can help in whatever course that they need help in.
Perfect, man. I appreciate you so much, Jeremy. Thanks.